Jim, beginning on September 1st, 2019, producers can begin signing up for the portion of the Farm Bill that allows for the election of either the Price Loss Coverage Program or the Agriculture Risk Coverage Program. How did we get here?
We're really going to talk today about the commodities portion of Farm Bill, particularly Title I, which a big part of is corn, wheat, and soybeans here in Michigan. There's some other crops. And there was a completely kind of new Farm Bill, the short title of this thing, and what we'll refer it to as I go through here. There was a lot of changes in the 2014. We didn't have this ARC program. We didn't have the PLC program, but we had them. They've been used for the last 5 years, and that part of the program is going to stay the same other than a few minor changes. There is one real important change, and that is in the previous Farm Bill, you had to sign up for one or the other for the whole 5-year period. This time, you only have to sign up for initially a 2-year period, and then each of the last 3 years you can change your mind. And you can sign up for both all your commodities being PLC or all your commodities being ARC. There was also one other big change, and that change is you'll be allowed to update your program yield.
Could you remind us how PLC and ARC work?
Well, PLC is a price-based payment takes care of price risk below a particular reference price. ARC's are revenue-based. It's based on a guarantee per acre, some type of yield times price with some amount per acre.
What are the reasons for the two choices?
The short answer is we couldn't make up our minds in the 2014 bill which one was better. So they decided to let producers have their choice. Are they really more worried about the price risk in any given year? Or are they more worried about some revenue guarantee? But the revenue guarantee is based on county numbers, not individual farm numbers.
How do you go about making the decision between ARC and PLC? And might our decision be different than the 2014 decision?
Let me start with the second part first. Absolutely, the decision could be different. And for much of Michigan, unlike Kansas and the wheat areas, I do expect the decision to be different. What we do is, the first thing we do is we look at under what set of price conditions and yield conditions would PLC be better than ARC or vice versa.
Can you give us some examples to help us better understand the decision thought process?
The reference prices are the same for 2018 as 2014. $3, and I'm talking first about the PLC. $3.70 for corn, $8.40 for soybeans, and $5.50 for wheat. If the marketing year average price, and that's a price determined, a weighted price between September 1 and August 31st of each year for corn and soybeans, June to June for wheat, is lower than the reference price, so let's use corn, of $3.70. Right now the USDA is predicting the marketing year price for 2019-2020 will be $3.30. So we take our $3.30, we subtract that from $3.70 to get our 40 cents. You multiply that times your number of base acres, and then times 0.85, and that would be your payment per acre. The reason for the 0.85 and the prices are, this isn't a program designed to be your returns over many years. It's a safety net. Now, when we look at the ARC program, we look at a 5-year average, the previous 5-year average price, Olympic average, of the whole U.S. We look at each county's Olympic average 5-year yields. We multiply those together and then do some math times 0.86. And how we do that is when we get that amount of guaranteed per acre, we see what happened, what's the average marketing year price, what was the yield, county yield in that particular year, multiply those two together, and when you subtract one from the other, if it's positive, That's basically your payment, although it can't be more than 10% of the guarantee.
Given that prices and yields over the next year will affect the decisions, how does a producer think through having to make the decision now?
We make the decision not knowing what our yields are going to be and not knowing what our price is going to be. So that's going to be a real advantage this year, that we get to sign up for 2 years and later on get to change our minds. By the time of sign up, and given we have 40 to 60 days to make our election, we'll probably know an awful lot about the county yield, and we'll also know an awful lot about the odds for the marketing year price from September 1 to the next year. If most of the reason returns to acres are low are due to the price, then PLC will be better. If in your particular county there's a really poor yield, and that's the main reason for poor returns, then I can show you pretty easy scenarios of why ARC might be better. Say yield is down 5% for soybeans or 10% for corn. We may want to look at ARC versus PLC.
Jim, you talked about FSA farm program yields used in the PLC calculation and the chance to update. Tell us why the update and where do the program yields come from?
The update is mostly so that we can, might say, correct the yield. If you had a really poor program yield, as I'll talk about in just a minute, this gives you a chance to get a better one. So we look at what these are. The program yields for the 2014 bill were calculated off the your own individual farm yields from 2008 to 2012. We took an average, and if you didn't grow a crop that year, it would be left out of the average. And we take that average yield and we multiply it times 0.9, which comes from the Farm Bill. That's in the legislation. And then that number is really important because that's the number that when the marketing year price is below the reference year price, so we're getting a payment, it's that yield multiplied times your base acres times 0.85, another number from the Farm Bill, that gives you your payment. So the way the update goes is you're now going to take from 2012 through 2017, 5 years, take your average yield, again, not counting years you didn't plant it, multiply it times 0.9, just like we did in the first one, and then multiply it times 0.9 again. Otherwise, multiply it times 0.81. Why is this? They didn't make this update to give you a real higher yield. It was more to correct the yield in case you had 2 or 3 bad years in the first period. Where did we get that number? They looked at the U.S. crop, and actually the average in the second period was, the number would have been 0.87. We multiplied it to detrend it, but the Farm Bill again said 0.9, so we're actually a little better off. The state of Michigan, if you used their yields, would have been better off keeping their yield the same. If your yields was the same as the United States as a whole, you'd be better off doing it. So each farm needs to correct this, and this is critical.
Should you update, and do you have to?
The answer is maybe. You update if you're better off, and you don't update if you're worse off. And you don't have to update. You can take the higher program yield. I think for much of Michigan, it's going to vary. There'll be some people, especially in those counties that had 2 bad yields in the 2008 to 2012 and did not. The state of Michigan, if your farm was the same average, we would not update. If your average was the same as the U.S., you would update. So it is very unique. But even take 5 or 10 cents and multiply it times your acres times 30 or 40 cents, and it adds up to a lot of money.
Where do we go from here? What can producers be doing between now and sign up in September?
The biggest thing they they can do right now is update their program yields. Most farmers, they're not required to do this. So most farmers don't do that regularly. And then if they have a chance, because some farm bills you get update and some farm bills you don't get update. So I really think, now I know we're itching to get in the fields right now, but you need to get this update to see whether. The second thing is, and there'll be a lot more information because all the details aren't out, is to learn as much about this farm bill as you can by the sign-up date September 1, because now you're going into harvest and you might say I have 40 to 60 days, but that goes awful quick. And the reason you have to learn about both programs is we won't probably know which one is better until we get there. And the reason for that is we don't know we'll have a lot of information what the county yield is, and we'll have a lot of information about the expected price. And those are the two key numbers we need to know.